What's going on, guys? It's your channel, TFD, back again with another one. And I'm going to be straight with you from the jump. This whole WNBA CBA negotiation situation is looking really bad right now. Like, alarm bells should be going off bad. For this one, we've got to take it all the way up to New York, because that's where a lot of these decisions are being shaped. So let's get into it. All right, so with everything that's happening, the outlook for the WNBA right now is not good. I'll be honest, the only thing kind of softening the blow is the fact that unrivaled ratings have been absolutely atrocious and embarrassing. That's just the truth. But even with that, the bigger picture is still ugly. For years, the WNBA has been propping this league up, keeping players afloat when the business itself wasn't making money. That's facts. The league has been paying for housing, cars, travel, childcare, things a lot of people conveniently forget about when they start talking big numbers. Now, what's wild is that many of the same players who benefited from that support now seem ready to push the league to the brink. And I'm just going to say it plainly, this could end up being the death of Caitlin Clark's WNBA era. This could really be it if things go left. Caitlin is a big enough star where she'll be fine regardless. She could play overseas, start something new, build her own brand, do whatever she wants. She's that level of star. But Caitlin Clark in the WNBA? That's what's in danger right now if they can't figure this out. And what makes it worse is that it feels like some of her peers are perfectly fine burning the whole thing down. That's why we've got to talk about this article. ESPN broke down how we even got to this point, and I want to hit the main reasons because this really is do or die for the league. I'm not exaggerating. This could be the end, at least for the foreseeable future. Look, I've been taking heat for a long time covering the WNBA, but I take one for the team. I've been warning y'all about this. I told you about the Caitlin Clark hype. I told you how the Indiana Fever mishandled her early on. I told you why she got hurt, adding all that muscle too fast. It's all there. Go back and look. And I've been saying this funeral was coming. The problem is simple. They want money that does not exist. Firm. And I hate saying that, because I support Caitlin Clark heavy. Her poster is still right here. That hasn't changed. I hate the idea that she might not get to come back and show the world how great she is again because a deal can't get done. Now, Alexa from ESPN dropped this article breaking down 11 things that got us here with the WNBA CBA negotiations. And personally, I think it's way more than 11. But those points explain exactly why we're staring at a cliff right now. And the question is simple. Does the league step back, or do they drive straight off it? I'm going to give you, in my opinion, the main things that got it to this point where it could be death. Okay, the first one is, the WNBA and WNBPA agreed on a groundbreaking CBA in 2020. Now, this was important here. June 2020, the WNBA announced the bubble season. Now, you've got to understand the context here, because this was happening during an absolutely insane time in the world. Everything was shut down, nothing was normal, and that's when the league decided to move forward with the bubble and actually play games. And for those of you who don't really know the history, Cathy Engelbert had to straight up plead with these players to participate. If they didn't play, there was not going to be a WNBA. It was that simple. A lot of players were demanding all of their money up front, and not just that, extra money on top. And somehow, Cathy Engelbert made it work. Now, I'm not saying she's perfect. I've been very clear about my issues with her, especially when it comes to the way Caitlin Clark has been handled. I still think she deserves criticism for that. But facts are facts. In 2020, this league was on life support. There were players who were absolutely willing to let the WNBA disappear if their demands weren't met. Cathy had to lay it out for them in plain language. She told them, if you don't play in the bubble, this league will not exist anymore. No games, no future, nothing. She had to convince them, pay them early, and even pay them extra just to get them on the floor. That moment was critical. That was survival mode for the WNBA. And people really need to remember that, because without that bubble season, the league might not even be here today. Okay, now look here. Said February 2022, capital raise announced. Said a capital raise featuring new investors and existing WNBA and NBA owners brought in $75 million that was used to supercharge the WNBA's business growth, including better marketing and more innovation. At the time, it was billed as the largest capital raise for a women's sports property. But in turn, the WNBA gave up a 16% equity stake, muddying the waters of its ownership structure. 42% of the league is owned by WNBA owners, 42% by NBA owners, and 16% by that investor group. So this part right here is huge. And I mean huge. This isn't some small detail you can just brush off. What happened here completely shifted the balance of power. Before, you had private owners who only owned WNBA teams, and then you had owners who also owned NBA teams. That balance already mattered. But once this new investor group came in, everything changed. That extra 16% might not sound like a lot on the surface, but it absolutely is. That slice shifted leverage, influence, and decision-making power in a real way. Now you've got outside investors sitting at the table, and that changes how negotiations work, how money gets discussed, and who really has control. That one move altered the entire dynamic, and we're still seeing the effects of it right now. Okay. Now, here said, March 2022, Liberty fined for illicit chartering. Something else that happened was the Liberty said reports surfaced in early March 2022 that the New York Liberty were fined $500,000 for chartering flights to away games during the second half of the 2021 WNBA season. That was an issue. Okay. Let's move next. Okay. Here said April 2023. Aces kickstart facilities race. All right, so now you're starting to see it clearly. Teams are finally putting real money into facilities, and that's not happening by accident. Look at the Aces. They've got an owner who's fully bought in, someone actually willing to spend. He's investing in top-tier coaches, first-class facilities, and even flying the team private out of his own pocket. That matters. That's a level of commitment we just didn't see from most owners before. A lot of owners weren't willing to go that extra mile, but now the standard is changing, and it's exposing who's serious and who isn't. Okay, let's move next. I am just looking main part. Wait. First, let's see this. Here said October 2023. New wave of WNBA expansion begins. Right here is another key moment. The league introduced its first expansion team in 15 years when it announced that Golden State would be launching a WNBA franchise starting in 2025. That wasn't just a random announcement. That was the beginning of a bigger shift. That's when the league really started asking, all right, which markets are we adding? Where is the new money coming from? New teams mean new ownership groups, new investment, and new expectations. That move signaled growth on paper, but it also raised the stakes for everything that came after. This right here was the biggest piece of all, and I truly believe this is one of, if not the main reasons we're even at this point right now. A lot of things played a role, but this changed everything. Because of this brilliant young lady, Caitlin Clark. April 2024. That moment with Caitlin Clark shifted the entire landscape, altered expectations overnight, and put the league in a position it had never been in before. Here said April 2024, Caitlin Clark drafted into WNBA. Spotlight intensifies. Remember that spotlight intensifies. Fresh off a record-breaking senior season at Iowa, Clark was drafted #1 in the 2024 draft by the Indiana Fever, bringing one of the biggest names in all of sports onto the WNBA stage. Clark was a hit from the moment she entered the league, with her draft night coverage recording an average of 2.45 million viewers. Go back to draft night coverage. Just look at it. That was the moment. That was the star power we've been talking about for years, the kind this league has never truly had before. They had never seen a star on that level, and honestly, they didn't know how to handle it. But here's the part that matters. They still tried to capitalize off her. All while calling her fans racist, all while pushing fake investigations, all while she's getting injured nonstop, all while she's the most flagrantly fouled player in the league. Through all of that, they're using her name and her draw. And that's why we're here. Because without Caitlin Clark, these demands don't exist. Period. Okay, look, here's said, weeks later, the league announced it was transitioning to a full-time chartering program. Weeks later. Yeah, some teams were already flying private on back-to-backs, even for the finals. But weeks after Caitlin Clark gets drafted, now everybody is flying private to every game. Think about that. What we talking about? What we talking about? Caitlin Clark didn't just enter the league, she changed the whole standard. She raised expectations for every player, every team, and the way the league operates. She literally shifted the culture overnight. Come on, man. This is on another level. Now, here said, though made in the wake of Clark's arrival, the decision addressed years of player health and safety concerns. Chartering would no longer have to be collectively bargained, and instead, the players and league would seek to simply codify it in the next CBA. The fanfare Clark received from college carried over to the WNBA, which saw a historic year in attendance, viewership, and other key metrics. While Clark was the driving force of the sport's rise in popularity, other college stars, such as fellow 2024 draftee Angel Reese and more recently 2025 #1 pick Paige Bueckers, also brought significant followings to the WNBA. I'm going to be real about Paige Bueckers, because let's be honest, she doesn't move the needle in Unrivaled like people say. Last year in Dallas, she had the third lowest attendance in the entire WNBA. Now, don't get it twisted, Paige is an amazing basketball player. No doubt about that. But the star power everyone's hyping? I just don't see it. She's talented, yes, but she's not the kind of draw that Caitlin Clark is. That's just the facts. Plain and simple. Now, here said it became clear, Clark was a sort of rising tide that helped lift all boats. The epic WNBA Finals in 2024 between the Liberty and Minnesota Lynx were the most viewed in 25 years. But the league's newfound growth and attention featured growing pains. Among the major flashpoints, Engelbert came under fire and eventually apologized for failing to condemn in an interview racist and misogynistic rhetoric from fans surrounding the Clark-Reese rivalry. This is not about rivalries or iconic personalities fueling a business model, WNBPA Executive Director Terry Jackson said in a statement. This kind of toxic fandom should never be tolerated or left unchecked. It demands immediate action, and frankly, should have been addressed long ago. So, now you've got all this chaos, with people out here labeling every Clark fan as racist, no matter their skin color. Now, Caitlin Clark steps in, brings all that hype, all that attention, all that cash. Boom. Said WNBA locks in a massive $2.2 billion media deal with Disney, Amazon Prime Video, and NBC Universal. And just like that, the players are seeing the money, seeing the opportunities, and realizing the league just leveled up. Okay, now here. Said October 2024, players opt out of previous CBA. Now, maybe they wouldn't have even opted out at all. They could have stayed in, with or without Caitlin Clark. But one thing's for sure, they absolutely wouldn't be making the demands they're making right now if it weren't for Caitlin Clark. Okay, boom. Here said, January 2025, Unrivaled launches. All right, let's break this down. We all know Unrivaled was actively trying to push the WNBA aside, and that's no secret. They wanted to get the league out of the spotlight. But here's the reality. It's 2026, and the ratings are absolute garbage. That plan didn't work, not even close. Their strategy fell flat, and it's clear the league isn't going anywhere that easily. That "pay us what you owe us" campaign was huge, though. It put a spotlight on the money issues and shook things up behind the scenes. Then you've got the fallout with Kathy Engelbert. Remember the back and forth with Nafisa Collier? Nafisa tried to air out private conversations, spilling what some considered dirty laundry, and Kathy didn't hold back. She flat out called her a liar. That drama showed just how tense things had gotten behind closed doors. But even with all of this chaos, it's part of the bigger picture. Some of these moments mattered more than others. The bubble situation, for example. Kathy literally had to beg players to show up and play. That was a critical moment that kept the league alive. But the biggest turning point? Caitlin Clark entering the league. Her arrival didn't just bring hype, it completely reset expectations. Players are making demands we've never seen before, and they're doing it while criticizing the very people bringing in the money they want. They want to bash them, but at the same time, capitalize off them. That contradiction is real, and it's putting the league in a dangerous spot. All of these factors, the ratings, the drama, the bubble, Caitlin Clark's arrival, could ultimately threaten her future in the WNBA. The league is at a crossroads, and things could get messy fast. Drop your thoughts in the comments, keep the conversation going, and don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe.